ahead. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, sing it, oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, babe. Take me back to the distance. Oh yeah, late night cooking in the kitchen.
Some of the ways she's using, it's interesting how, funny, we in the chat were just talking about how she and Jasmine Sullivan like articulate the phrases.
The distance. Oh yeah.
So we talked in the last song about aspirate graduals, and we did abrupt. Oh, that's me playing Valorant. That's not anything cares about. Here, there we go. So abrupts are really interesting. You can use abrupt in a run to make certain notes hit. So so you can see that those three in the middle right there, those are the abrupts. And particularly, if you want to notice this, if you want to get really nerdy, you see how the two to the right have like a really, really flatness on the left of the waveform? That's me blowing air and then boom, the folds slapping together like that. And what she is doing, Yebba is she is using that as well as just pure open folds to give a lot of details to the run, because a lot of these runs are so fast that if you don't try to like emphasize certain rhythms, like a certain downbeat, it just kind of becomes mush. It's like, oh, that's a lot of notes, but where are we again? Like, so these runs have a lot of details in them that allows us to call it music, interesting, and also super nice.
The distance. Oh yeah.
You see how she'll go super breathy and then the folds will hit together?
The distance. Oh yeah. Late night cooking in the kitchen. Dirty dancing in my room, and sending my love all over.
Oh man, this is how you know someone's a recording artist. Listen to how she's right there with the guitar player.
Room, and sending my love all over.
It's not the most complicated thing to do, but if you're a recording artist, you know how painful overdubs are if you don't have good rhythm. Overdub is, but you're recording over something else that was already recorded, right? Something that's not recorded at the same time. You record it after the fact on top of it. And any deviation in rhythm muddies up the mix immediately. So.
Because of the time we shared, time we lost in love with one another. Days we had, pay the cost of losing heart's desire. So
what I'm loving here is actually what she's not doing.
Time we shared, time we lost in love with one another.
There are a lot of folks who do a lot of different things on their low. Sorry, we're going back to the spectrogram because it's required for this. People do all sorts of things in their low range to make it beefier, to make it louder, and sometimes they beef up their high end and it kind of disconnects the voice. So what she's doing is just a straight up scale. super clean, super clean. And it's all in the music. It's like everything that's interesting here is not technical, which is probably the first time I've said that on this channel. Like what a lot of when we were covering Mariah Carey, in some tunes she'll do like so that's called the proximity effect. By getting really close to the microphone and having like by getting close to the microphone, I'm going to boost the lows anyway. But if I purse my lips, I elongate my vocal tract, make the same thing happen. It's not better or worse, but it's just really interesting that like she's not hyper conscious of tone at every moment. These runs are very, very like pure and clean.
We lost in love with one another.
Like there's no contrivance here. There is no bells or whistles. It's just a really straightforward delivery, and I love that.
Days we had pay the cost of losing heart's desire. So very soon I'll be sending my love all over you. Oh, I still get so lost in the feeling.
That's really cool. She is, for the most part, like here she was singing with a neutral larynx.
So very soon I'll be sending my love all over.
And then she is doing some stuff with her false folds every now and then. So I as a default, because I was classically trained opera singer, my default is to retract my false folds. When I have them together and I'm more like just speaking, this is actually how I sound. This is neutral false folds, right? They're not together, but they're not apart. And so she's playing with this exact thing here, but she's also playing with her larynx. So if I have what we're seeing here.
Lost in the feeling.
So that's going to be your higher larynx. So retracted, lower, together, neutral, apart, but high larynx. Which is the Disney sound, as a matter of fact. That's the reason it's the Disney sound. This is my second Disney reference in this tiny concert, but the reason why it's the Disney sound is that the women who were playing the princesses in the animated movies were much older than their characters, so they had to do something to sound younger. So they would sing classically, but with their larynx very high. And you can hear the dramatic tone change. Yes, she does that falsetto thing, but we've heard that falsetto thing, and it doesn't sound like this because she's doing it and lifting her larynx. So this right here is actually the false folds coming together.
I wonder if I would do.
That. So false fold distortion is really, really cool. Your regular folds are tiny, tiny, tiny pieces of flesh. For men, they're about the size of a nickel. For women, they're about the size of a dime. So if you try to do distortion stuff with like hard, like vocal frying, sliming, grinding together, they get damaged pretty easy. But the false folds are different. They're covered with flesh, but they're little pieces of cartilage. And so you can do really cool things when you can like click your false folds together. So like Another example of that would be that like didgeridoo and throat bass stuff that people do. That's your false folds coming together like that. So false fold distortion is just a really cool thing.
Pay the cost of losing heart's desire so soon. I'll be sending my love all over you. So take me back to the distance. Oh yeah. Late night cooking in the kitchen. Oh yeah. Dirty dancing in my room. I love the things you do, and I'm sending all of my love to you, baby.
A pleasure. Just because it's going to come up, I know people are going to be interested in it. The runs. So, there is a lot of misunderstanding of like mix. People think like head, chest, mix. Like these are all like concrete things that you can identify and be like, that's mix. All of these things happen on a continuum, right? So I was talking about this earlier before, right? So like you can anywhere, like some adduction, like versus some open, like the folds can do all of that range of motion. Also, if you want to go higher, you don't necessarily need to mix in the sense of like having some of your folds open. You can do something else. You can tilt different cartilages in your throat. The most common is the thyroid tilt. That vibrato, that's the thyroid tilt. And what the thyroid tilt does, it pulls it as the false folds are connected to it. So when it tilts, it's like a rubber band and it stretches. And the significance of that is that if you're going up for a mix, so that would be breathy, like a little bit, there's a little bit separation, right? And Yebba is doing a lot of that, where she just goes up into this mix where there's some connection versus not. But then every now and then she'll throw in a tilt. So run out of breath there. But you can definitely see, like, if the first two are the thyroid tilt, and then my flat, sad excuse for the last note is just a neutral larynx. That tilting, that stretching, literally allows more pressure to build up, because the vocal folds are more taut. So they're like this. So more pressure builds up before they oscillate, before they open and close, which is how they make sound, right? So because of that, the thyroid tilt not only increases volume, it also gives us a vibrato and a more sensual sound. But Yebba is deliberately avoiding that. And then she adds it here. So during the runs, you can see how here she goes up, right? You can hear that hiss sound, that kind of sound that comes out. That's air escaping from the folds because they're not totally connected. Then so that's the thyroid tilt there, where she has vibrato. Vibrato comes from tilting her thyroid cartilage. And then what she does that's also really cool, I don't know if I can do it, but so when we discussed aspirate graduals here, singing very, very softly so that your folds just barely come together, you can still do that with your thyroid tilt. Your thyroid tilt doesn't make them come together in the same way. When you put your fingers in a rubber band and you stretch it, there's still that little bit of space. So you still have some stuff you can work with in terms of like mixing, right? And so what we get here is this cool little sound. that grinding sound, if you are not familiar with what's going on, you might think there's vocal damage. You might think she's doing something dangerous. She's not. This sound only happens when you have slack folds. It's a vocal fry. So she has slack folds, which means incredibly low amounts of air. She's extremely loose. And it's just the folds going like together, right? And it's not happening in a harsh way like it was when she was using false fold distortion, because the false folds can take a beating. Here, it's just super light breath. These backup singers are killer. So that is an example of, it's not necessarily false fold distortion, but that's your false folds coming together. That constricted sound comes from the false folds coming together. So we already did kind of an example of this, so I won't belabor the point. But, you know, if I go up here, I'll motion what I'm doing with my false folds. Right? That's a very, very common sound in rock and roll. False fold constricting is not an efficient way of singing at all. It is very inefficient and potentially damaging. So the only time I would ever advise that you do this is if you can seriously, comfortably, quietly sustain a note, and then, you know, like, you can also go and crescendo on the note and come, so you can do it full, you know, little, big, little, right? Crescendo, diminuendo, right? If you can do that and you have that much control on the pitch and you can do it on every vowel, that's when you start going for tricks like this. Don't do it before you're ready, because it will hurt you. That's really cool. I'm not sure what that tone is. It sounded like her teeth were on her lips for a second. It's funny, she doesn't broadcast her technique, you know what I mean? She's not like, at no point is she like broadcasting it, and it's incredible. Like, she is incredibly precise. It's really cool.